So thank you. But for your first presentation tonight, item 5A, we have some staff members here from Caltrans and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission here to talk about the proposal, actually the imminent plan to install ramp meters. And our Public Works Director is making room for them to join us at the table. I believe Mr. Adrian Levy is here, so please come to the front, and we'd love to hear more about what's proposed. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Kuhn. Good evening. My name is Adrian Levy. I'm a senior transportation engineer with Caltrans out of the Oakland office. As Ms. Kuhn said, I'm here to discuss the proposal to implement or actually expand ramp metering on Interstate 80 here in Solano County, including Vacaville. Little history about this project. We started about 5 years ago at the STA level with discussions with their technical staff. We met with, back then it was Sam Shelton was a staff level all the way up through Darrell Halls. This project was divided into various stages, and we've completed stage one. It was ramp metering eastbound in Fairfield only. I'll get to that in a moment. That was completed with an after study and collecting data and analyzing it earlier this year. And we're now in the process of stage two, which is the proposal to expand the ramp metering corridor. First, I'd like to go over the history of stage one. Again, it was eastbound only for the afternoon peak, starting at Red Top and going out to North Texas. We turned on the meters Monday through Friday. Actually, Monday through Thursday, they were proposed to be generally solid green unless if there was an incident or very heavy traffic, and then those meters would start to cycle. Given the very heavy volume on that corridor, Friday afternoons, we had fixed cycle times on a typical Friday, and then an extra hour into the evening on a Friday before a 3-day weekend. We implemented that February 24th of last year, and like I said, we have concluded that stage one. I'd like to talk a little bit about the challenges and the success that we had with that. Some were unique to the corridor, some were universal to ramp metering. The challenges we had, and we may have a little bit of this should we decide to go ahead with stage two, is at Beck and Abernathy. These were multi-lane ramps. For some reason, the motorists at first weren't using both lanes. I know that at Abernathy we took away an HOV lane, and the motorists weren't quite used to that, but things evened out, and they are getting even usage now. Also unique to that corridor, unfortunately, with the construction project going on at 80, 12, and 680, we are still having a difficulty getting power out to the eastbound Route 12 on-ramp. So that is not being metered at the moment. Other problems that are related, that are actually universal to ramp metering and actually our infrastructure, copper wire theft. We get it everywhere. I'm sure you get it here in Vacaville. But Caltrans has actually been quite active in replacing any of the damaged equipment, whether it's a knockdown of a ramp meter or replacing copper wire. Also universal to any ramp metering implementation, and I want to disclose this, it's very important. When we turn on ramp meters throughout a corridor, something that's very important is a public outreach, a public information campaign. Despite that, there are still a lot of confused drivers, and then especially on the first day and the next few days after that. It comes to an equilibrium typically within a week or two. So those were the challenges that we had to overcome with stage one. But it was a success. Caltrans worked with STA. We worked with the MTC, the City of Fairfield. And leading up to this, we actually also invited your staff and staff from throughout the corridor. So this was done in collaboration. Caltrans, after the implementation, was out there every day, monitoring it, making the fine-tuning, making the adjustments. And in the end, it was a successful implementation. We really don't get a lot of complaints about it. So I look back on the help that we received from, again, MTC and STA and the City of Fairfield on that, and it was a good partnership. A little bit about the metrics. We were very conservative with what we presented to the City of Fairfield and the county. Over a 10-mile corridor, we thought that the motorists would save about 1 minute, which is about 10% of the travel time if you're doing 60 miles an hour. Actually, the travel time savings was up to 3 minutes, or on this corridor, before the metering, it was about a 14% travel time. So that's a wrap-up of Stage 1, and this is what we would like to propose with Stage 2. Expanding the ramp metering limits in both directions, starting with Redwood Street in Vallejo and going all the way out to Interstate 505 here in Vacaville. We would continue to meter in the afternoons in the eastbound direction. For the westbound direction, we would leave them on solid green in the mornings for the morning peak in case, again, an incident or heavy unexpected traffic. We also believe that ramp metering would help Sunday afternoons when the traffic gets really heavy. So we've modeled what ramp metering can do, and again, I think it could help. We are proposing to activate it in about a month. So getting a little bit more into the details, again, in the morning, westbound, we would leave them on solid green from 5 in the morning till 10 o'clock. Again, if the occupancy on the freeway gets very heavy, then that's when we would start to cycle the ramp meters. A minor tweak with eastbound afternoons, Monday through Thursday, rather than have that solid green, we've actually seen traffic increase quite a bit over the past year to 18 months. So we would like to start metering them on a fixed cycle from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Fridays, we would expand those hours a little bit as well, and again on Sunday afternoon from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and pretty much shoulder those periods with solid green in case congestion sets in early or lingers later than expected. Our modeling shows that in the eastbound direction during a typical afternoon, you could save about 9% of the time over this 26-mile corridor. Go ahead, Steve. And in the westbound direction, on a Sunday afternoon, up to 6 minutes or 22% travel time savings. So our next proposed steps are to get together with the group that we've been meeting with for 5 years and approve a ramp metering plan that's right now being finalized by Kittleson and Associates. Caltrans, our PIO office, will concurrently send out a press release and put construction area signs on each on-ramp advertising our ramp metering implementation hotline, and we staff that. And we return all the phone calls, phone calls to anyone that wants to call back and leaves their phone number. We would like to get this turned on before the end of October so as to not interfere with the local area's holiday shopping patterns. As in the past, not only here in Solano County, but throughout the Bay Area and California, when we turn on ramp meters, we will be out there monitoring the corridor. We take travel times, we monitor the on-ramps, and we meet and collaborate with the cities, with STA, and we go out the next day and we make the adjustments as necessary. And again, like I said, we would expect that the traffic patterns would balance out and come to an equilibrium. And then in about a year, we collect more data and compare it to the before data and see how much it's improved. We would expect it to improve, but if it hasn't, we would determine that as well. That's pretty much what I have to come here and present to you. I would like to know if any of you have any questions or concerns.
Councilwoman Harris?
I have a couple questions. I've seen the data in regard to the ramp metering. I'm not still fully convinced that it is as effective as presented. And, I think there's more of an issue because of the fact the lanes have been reduced. We go from Fairfield to Vacaville, it's gridlock always, but there's a lane reduction. Mm-hmm. And I don't see how ramp metering is going to improve the flow when there's not an additional lane to actually accommodate the number of cars, on the road. So, tell me how that works.
Thank you. So what happens when you take a freeway corridor? I like to equate a freeway corridor to a pipeline. Okay, if you have a 6-inch pipeline that goes on for several miles, and that pipeline is constricted by a couple of inches down to 4 inches, that whole pipeline will have a capacity of a 4-inch pipe, even though for miles it's 6 inches. That's how a freeway behaves. But where they differ is when your demand exceeds your capacity of that entire corridor, the capacity will actually go down even further. So if you've got 5 lanes going into 4 lanes, we generally like to say about a rough estimate of 8,000 vehicles per hour along that corridor. But if your demand exceeds that, then the capacity actually drops below that 8,000. I'm giving you some round numbers. So the idea with ramp metering is to manage the demand upstream so the demand does not exceed the capacity.
However, that backs it up into the city streets, and then you have basic gridlock on your city streets.
What we do is we have a queue detector at the upstream end of the on-ramps. And so when we detect that traffic is backing up onto streets, we usually hear from the traffic engineers or the public works directors. We do go out and monitor the corridors, but where we meter, we are in collaboration with the local jurisdictions. Anyway, when that traffic is detected to back up onto the streets, we actually get the ramp meter to cycle faster and faster to shorten the queue. As the Caltrans person, I would love to keep the freeways clear, but we do work in partnerships with the locals. We can't do that, and so we're committed to keeping the traffic keeping the freeway traffic off of the local streets. I hope that alleviates your concern. And again, I will
have to wait and see how, once it's implemented, whether it actually solves some of the problems without impacting others. That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay. Well, again, I've been working with Steve since he was at Fairfield, and I'm in touch with Fairfield on an as-needed basis, as well as the other cities in my jurisdiction. And when they call me, I send my staff out there. We work with the system. We'll do what we can.
It's one of the biggest complaints I hear is the gridlock traffic, and so it's nothing you haven't heard before. Right. It's that I hear it on a regular, if not weekly, daily basis. So,
Councilman Nashburn.
Really quickly to build off of what Councilwoman Harris was saying, I drive that gridlock every day. Drove it on my way here tonight, and I'm not a hydrologist, but given your example of the pipe and the pipeline, and I would have to defer to the water folks, but the backup is going to have to go somewhere. It doesn't matter how fast you cycle that light, that backup comes back into the city. And while the folks realize a 6-minute gain over 23 miles, according to this chart, they lose more than that just sitting at the light in the city. I can tell you that today I sat through 2 cycles of the light in Fairfield at North Texas Street for well more than 6 minutes. I sat through a cycle greater than that on Travis Boulevard the day before that. And so what we gain as a net for everybody traveling the freeway, we lose as residents in the city. And given some of our intersections in the city and their proximity to the freeway, right? In Fairfield, for an example, if you are on the span that runs from North Texas Street down to the freeway, very long span, a lot of road there, and you still sit through 2 cycles of the light, what are we going to do at the intersection of Alamo and Merchant down here, where you've got a very short span before you hit the freeway, and everything backs up through that intersection at 8 in the morning, right? What are we as a city supposed to do, and how is the cycling of the speed of that light going to help us? I guess what I'm getting at is that I would like to be able to voice this to you so that you may voice it back up the chain, that we would rather have the money invested in the lanes so that we have the capacity on the freeway to handle the growth in our area rather than metering that backs the people up off of the freeway into our area. That's just
right. Well, again, Councilman Mashburn, I would like to emphasize we are committed to keeping the freeway traffic off of the city streets. Yes, we have some short ramps. They are challenges. I will say that, again, within the first week or 2 of implementation, we always have issues with that. In the end, after it does come to an equilibrium, we do sacrifice the freeway main line to preserve the traffic network on the local streets. So that's, again, I want to emphasize to all of you that we are committed to not contributing to the queues that would be on the local streets.
I did notice in your presentation that it's not proposed that the ramp meters be activated in the morning going westbound. So the Alamo Merchant Street concern that you had unless the freeway conditions deteriorate. So when I saw that the lights would be green in the morning, especially at that location.
So my question would be, what's deterioration? What's a high traffic level? What causes the light to come on?
What level of service do you get to before you would turn those on?
We have the detectors on the main line, and it's set for a threshold occupancy. It's typically a high occupancy when we decide to go solid green. And I'm getting into the technicalities, but we could actually in the eastbound direction, we said that as long as it's going 55 and above, we'll keep them solid green, and it's only when it goes. And this was what the group that's what the group agreed to at the STA level, is when it goes below 55, that's when we'll start cycling them very quickly onto the freeway.
So for an example, this morning when I was at Leisuretowne Road and I got on westbound, it was 20 to 25 miles an hour at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it stayed that way all the way. So those people coming on from Alamo, they were crawling onto the freeway. And it was way backed up to the signal light. And we were doing literally 30 miles an hour all the way midway through Fairfield, and that's no metering.
Is anybody from this group on the STA group that agreed to that?
None of the cities had a choice. This was a state-run thing. They provided the money and they put the metering lights in. We did not get it. We did not get a decision to be made.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that.
STA didn't vote on this one. It was a state mandate, basically.
And right, we're not metering yet, and I'm not here to tell you that ramp metering will be the perfect pill for congestion. It probably won't get rid of all of your congestion. I'm here to present ramp metering to you as a demand management tool. I think that if we were to meter along the 80 corridor more than what we're doing now, the onset of congestion would happen later in the peak period and it would dissipate earlier in the peak period. So that's what I'm here to present to you.
Vice Mayor Hunt.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing and I understand the difference, but you know, it seems to me that if you know that the 4-inch pipe is going to be a problem, then build the 8-inch pipe all the way down. And, you know, I got to tell you, I agree with everybody up here. The other day I was coming from Walnut Creek, and I didn't hit any traffic, none, till I got to Fairfield. And it just stopped. And I drove 35 minutes. I made it from Walnut Creek to Fairfield in 20 minutes and had another 35 minutes for a 10-minute drive. And to the extent that we can work on something long-term, the answer isn't these metering lights. This isn't going to make a bit of difference. The other question I had about the metering lights, though, and some of the metering lights have a separate lane for carpools. We're not going to have that? I notice sometimes they say metering lights have a separate carpool lane.
Right. We do have some, well, exactly that. We do have some that have carpool lanes, some that don't. We do not, as Caltrans, we do not take a mixed flow lane and turn it into a carpool lane. We only build carpool lanes with new projects, so we're not going to take that.
It's not built that way. All right.
Correct.
Yeah, well, you got a unanimous view from our council here. We don't really have the problems as much as Fairfield does in Davis, and the problem is that 4 lanes go down to 3, and that's never going to be cured. I don't care how many metering lights you have, because they're on the freeway from San Jose and everywhere. All the people who love living in the Bay Area, they try to get out of there on the weekends. They can't stand it because all they got is porches and they have no lawns. And so they come out here to the areas where we have grass. Unfortunately, Governor Brown wants us to make it brown grass, but that's a fact. And we are never going to solve that problem until the lanes are equal all the way along that highway. If you have 4 lanes going to 3, you're going to have gridlock all the time. And you know, I can predict exactly where it starts in Fairfield and Davis and other places, and it's not going to be cured. So
again,
metering lights is just going to cause problems within the city, and they will, you know, you said save a minute. We're going to lose a lot more than 1 minute in the cities, and particularly if we start blocking intersections, and then people can't get through. Then all of a sudden, you know, we talk about the environment and how wonderful the state of California is, and all we're doing is keeping cars sitting there idling within the cities. And we get grades on how our air quality is here. Putting those cars there and having them run longer and at intersections and those on-ramps is going to cause us problems.
Again, I would like, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so this was not something that the cities decided they wanted. I want you to know that. We did not want that. And the state mandated that they're going to put metering lights in come hell or high water, and they did. And now we're going to have to pay for it. So I wish we had the opportunity to say turn them off at any time we want, turn them on. But to just say you're going to turn them on at certain times of the day for no reason is absolutely ridiculous.
Again, I would like to emphasize, I agree with you that when you got 4 lanes going into 3, that's a heavy challenge, and that is a capital project that would take millions and millions of dollars. Ramp metering is a minor investment that does return benefits. It does not increase the capacity of a freeway like an extra lane.
In my view, that the state of California has a desire to irritate people and get them out of their cars and put them into mass transit. And this is just another one of those issues which helps do that. You know, get them on buses, get them in carpools, and get them in vans, but get them off the highway. And the best way to do it is don't build parking lots and don't build highways. And you see the latest thing is there will not be any more lanes done, as far as I know. I'm seeing that there's going to be money taken away from that particular area. Not good. But I appreciate you coming here. You're just a messenger. I understand that.
I'm a little more than a messenger. I help manage the system.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that the proposal is not being received well.
Well, I want our residents to know that we do not support the metering lanes. You know, we think that they're going to be a problem. We hope we're wrong, but I don't think so. I think the problem is trying to squeeze 10 pounds through a 5-pound sack.
Sure.
And it's not going to happen when you go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. It's constantly going to be gridlock in Fairfield, whether you have metering lights or not. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.